Hello and welcome to the Wealthy Wellbeing Podcast, where we discuss all things health, fitness, real estate, and entrepreneurship. My guest today is Erin Puricelli. Erin, welcome to the podcast. Thank you for coming on. Did I say your last name right or close?
It's close. It's Puricelli. So the second
Puricelli.
I is silent, the crazy hidden Italian I.
Okay, awesome. Perfect. I'm like 1 for 2. Last week's guest, or the one that's coming out this Sunday, I think I got right, but I did ask him before. I did not ask you before we got on. So
that's okay.
It's
always interesting to see how people are going to pronounce it. So I was like, let's see. Siri does a really, really bad job. So yeah, it gets worse.
Awesome. So we met last week at the Mastermind 2 weeks ago, almost a week and a half. I know you're a CrossFit coach, you're a real estate investor, but why don't you give everybody a little background on, a little more detail on who you are, your journey to get to where you are, both in the health and fitness world and also in the real estate world.
Yeah. So let's see. We'll start with health and fitness. I guess I was a very active child. So I was doing somersaults and cartwheels and climbing the walls when I was young. So my mom, put me into dance classes and baton classes and gymnastics and anything she could to keep me from literally climbing up the walls. So I've always been super active. And then I was a cheerleader forever, all through high school. We were very competitive in cheerleading. I went to a branch of Pitt, and we competed in college as well. So lots of cheerleading, which kind of led right into after college teaching group fitness classes. So I've been teaching group fitness and now CrossFit boot camp at big box gyms, and do CrossFit as well for probably over 25 years. So I'm aging myself with that one. But I've just always loved, the workouts and the camaraderie with people. So that was just kind of my natural go through. I kind of wanted to be a teacher. I actually had friend's dad talk me out of being a teacher, which was probably one of the best changes I ever made. Was it's really just a thankless job. So I found other ways to teach, whether it be through real estate or other jobs I've had, or obviously group fitness. Teaching there is a lot more rewarding than it would have been with kids in schools and all that stuff these days. Mm-hmm. So I was in the mortgage industry for about 10 years until the collapse and the recession in 2008 and 9. And then I got into medical equipment sales, where I realized just how much I hated sitting in a desk and being in office and doing that type of job. So, I wish we would have had more guidance and, thought more about what I wanted to do when I was in college, but I just didn't really know. I would have loved to learn sales then, because I truly did enjoy it. So going into the doctor's offices and building relationships with everyone is, really similar to how we're doing investing now. So I have a little bit of that background. And then I was driving hours and hours on the road doing medical equipment sales. And I lived north of Atlanta and was traveling south of Atlanta. So finally, it had just become so much with traffic getting worse and worse. I decided to work for a friend's construction company. So learn construction. I've always liked math and liked designing. So I learned from her and then started my own construction company I had for about 5 years. So when I got introduced to real estate investing, it was kind of like, what do I do with all this background? I've got mortgage, sales, a hodgepodge of different things, knew a little bit of the construction. So it kind of made sense that a little bit of all of that goes into real estate investing. I had started with the Women's Real Estate Investing Network, REIN. If some people have seen those ads on Facebook, it was honestly a great place to start, meet some other women, and get a good background, which helped me realize I didn't know a lot, but then there was also different avenues and things I didn't know. So from there, I got into the REI Volt mentorship, which had several women in it from REIN as well. So we've connected there. I connected with another business partner through REI Volt. And it's been the next stepping stone of what to do with all this information. Now, how to guide it into a business, since there's so many little different moving parts and pieces. I think a lot of us felt like we had to learn all of those, from wholesaling to private money lending to flipping houses to long terms. And it just was so much to do. I find myself, stuck, not really knowing which way to go. Definitely knowing some things that I didn't want to do and wasn't interested in, but still kind of needed some guidance from there.
So a lot, like you said, a lot of different ways in real estate to get into it. And even through your experience growing up or coming up is the mortgage industry and the construction background and all that. Like you were in real estate in a bunch of different ways. And it's easy to get distracted from all those different ways to make money. So it's good that you're kind of like narrowing. So what, I guess on the real estate side, what are you focusing on now? Like, what are you working on now? Based on all the experience and kind of getting a little more guidance through some of the mentorships that you've been through.
Right. And another good thing with the mentorship we've been in now, before we went to this mastermind that Zach and I were at, we had a coach reach out and help us with some personality tests. And I've done that a million times with multiple sales jobs, but it was kind of good just to reinforce finding not only what you're good at, but what you like. All of our personalities kind of lead us to different things. My business partner is an attorney, real estate attorney. She's all into very analytical work. She loves contracts. She will write contracts. She will sift through contracts. She will do spreadsheets, which is definitely not my jam. So just it helped me find a partner that had the opposite strengths from me. And then we can kind of divide and conquer tasks from there. Because I am a coach and I'm very extroverted, chatty type person, getting into the capital raising, being a connector, all of those things come very naturally. So it was nice to have our mentorship group kind of look at guiding you that way. Mm-hmm. So that helped me narrow my focus. Both my business partner and I had the same goals of doing buy and holds, and we need to raise capital for that. So doing it for our business, doing it for other businesses is just kind of a great segue into something that I already enjoy, building the relationships. Mm-hmm. Social media was a little bit out of my comfort zone. As much as I stand in front of talk to people, promoting myself was a little bit of an uncomfortable area for me. But I've put out teasers minimally. You've seen over the past week or so since we've been back, and I'm getting great response from people that I'm already friends with, asking a lot of questions.
Yeah, you never know who has what, and you can't find that out until you put yourself out there and say, here's what I'm doing, here's what I'm looking for. And the people that you wouldn't expect, or you even know, they start coming out of the woodwork and be like, oh, that's interesting, that's cool, or I've been interested in this, how can I get involved? And that's when the conversation starts. But you don't know that until you start getting out of your comfort zone and just putting stuff out there. It doesn't matter what, just getting it started.
Yeah. And now we all met at the mastermind. We created quite a network of like-minded people. So one thing that, they taught us there is now that you promote, we're all promoting each other and answering questions and asking questions. It's just leading a conversation that's directing more people to what we're saying. So it's, crazy. It actually works.
Yeah. Networking is key. And you kind of talked about how you met your partner through, the REIN network, and then through the REI Volt, you stumbled into each other again. We're like, oh, keep seeing the same person over and over again. And so you mentioned you're working together and that you have skill sets that complement each other, right? They're not overlapping. You're not doing the same thing, or you don't enjoy doing the same thing, which could start causing issues. So walk me through the process of, maybe somebody else met somebody, they're not sure if they're going to be a good business partner. Like, how did you guys determine that you wanted to give being a partner a try, and what did that process look like?
It definitely took us a little time. It's kind of like dating. Before you get too serious with someone, you want to get to know them, have a couple conversations. We initially talked, when we got into the mentorship, the leaders encouraged us to kind of get on the Calendly and talk to everybody. So I'm the kind of person that's like, that sounds great, but I'm just going to sit back and wait and watch, and just kind of wanted to get on some Zooms before just spending a lot of time talking to everybody that I could maybe figure out I wasn't interested in. So just, hearing some of the comments or questions she had. And, I've talked to multiple people. We actually had a third partner who lives here in Woodstock, that I started talking to because I just wanted someone I could see in person. Like that's my personality. So then the three of us started talking together and quickly realized that we all weren't on the same page. So the person here just wasn't really available time-wise, wasn't jumping on the Zooms, wasn't putting in the work. And so the two of us quickly said, okay, maybe the three of us aren't going to work, but let the two of us discuss a little more. So we probably talked for 2 or 3 months and just kind of compared notes, started out comparing notes about what we were talking through on the calls, helped each other with underwriting, helped each other with questions of deals that we were kind of looking at. And we were both trying to figure out where we wanted to go, where we landed on buy and holds. We have thrown around the idea of pad splits too. She initially had got in touch with pad split before I did and got some properties that were for sale in Georgia. So being that I was here, that was another reason she was attracted to me. And she was like, great, you can go here. And I'm like, well, some of these areas I really can't go to. So it led to some funny conversations. But ultimately, we realized we were on the same path. And then given our background, like I'm sales, I'm an instructor, very much an extrovert, and she'd rather work on contracts and go over numbers and didn't want to be the person talking to everybody. So it kind of just worked out well. And we realized we had different strengths.
Mm-hmm. I like that you took the time to figure that out. Like you said, the dating period on, like, you don't just go and on the third date go, oh, let's get married. Let's do it. Right. You kind of take the time, feel each other out, make sure you have the right values and make sure you have the right work ethic. Right. You said you had a third partner that you thought maybe, hey, this would work. Maybe the three of us can, divide and conquer, the more the merrier. And you realize that they just weren't at the same level of commitment, a desire, or whatever it might be. And that's what weeded them out, as opposed to all three of you jumping into something like legally binding and then being stuck there and having the hard conversations and having to undo all of that. That's always great to have that person kind of weed themselves out. Is that what happened? They kind of just like faded away and you guys were like, or did you have to have that tough conversation with them?
We had to have a conversation, but we've had to do that a few times over the past year and a half that I've been doing it, and it's gotten easier. Definitely something that I have worked on personally is, it's not about everybody's feelings. It's what's best for you. I'm running a business. My income and life depends on it. So It's nothing personal. We can still be friends. We can still meet up here. But as far as work goes, this is what we're wanting to do, and we're ready to move forward now. And it was also a good partnership with Zan and I, because I'm kind of the carefree personality of, okay, let's go, let's do it. It'll work out. It's fine. Where she was stuck in analysis paralysis because she is such a numbers and such an analytical person. It brought us kind of in the middle from, fly by the seat of your pants to, okay, I've gone over the numbers 15 times. I'm fine. Let's just hold hands and take that step together. So it got us moving a lot further faster.
100%. Yeah. And just like a normal, regular relationship, right? The opposites attract thing. Like one person's way on one end, the other person on the other end. You kind of just bring yourself down. One person pulls the other person down, like, relax. It's okay. It's fine. The other person's so relaxed that it kind of just brings them up like, all right, let's worry a little bit about something, right? You don't have to be completely free about everything. So it's nice when that works out. And so in the real estate side, you have your partner here. Let's go back. You mentioned you started a construction company, which is awesome. So did you have a partner in that? And was that able to kind of translate into feeling comfortable building that partner relationship in real estate?
Definitely the construction thing was more of I didn't need to work at that time. It was something that I enjoyed. And I wish I would have had the knowledge that I have in the mentorship now, because it was just like real estate. There was the accounting, which clearly it's not my strongest suit. I literally had a notebook. Everything for me was on paper. I was going to write it out and put it down. I had a friend who was not technically a business partner, but he's a builder and a project manager. So he handled some of the technical stuff. He would come when we had issues or things to look at. And literally at one point I was like, I'm not sure whether I paid these guys $3,500 or not. And he was like, I'm going to kill you with the way that you're doing accounting. So it was just the same thing with the business, having someone do the marketing, having someone do the estimates, having someone do the accounting, having someone track materials. I didn't want to do all of that. and didn't have the wherewithal or, any type of leader or mentor to say, hey, you could run the business differently and, have people 1099 to help you. And because of that, I let it go, because I did all jobs like word of mouth. I worked in my old neighborhood and probably did 5 or 6 basements all at one time, and enjoyed doing that and connecting with those people, but just didn't want to do all aspects of the business.
Yeah. And I know when I think about being a business owner and all that's, like, you have to know everything. You have to know how to do everything. You have to do everything yourself. So like you said, seeing a new perspective on, becoming an owner and overseeing things, and you're responsible for the culture of the company and making sure the capital's there and, seeing where the vision's going, right? Those are the important parts of being an owner, not that you need to do everything. I always thought it's like, hey, let's just do everything. A book Robert Kiyosaki wrote, I think, Cash Flow Quadrants, where it talks about, like, you're an employee or you're a self-employed, right? They're the left side, where you're still working, you're still doing all of the work. And then the other side is, investor and, owner. And that's just like, you're working, you're doing stuff. It's just, you're doing stuff at a high level and everybody else is basically the employees. And there's just two different sides of that. So changing that perspective, that mindset from self-employed, high paid worker, employee, to owner of the business. So, having a coach, what specifically about having a coach kind of helped you make that mindset shift, that thought shift from, like, okay, I have to do everything, to I can focus on the high level tasks or certain tasks that I'm good at?
Well, mainly our, main leader of our group, Jesse Stanton, has just harped on, you just got to focus on that one thing. Like, what is your superpower? Where do your strengths lie? Where does this equate into real estate? Okay, we're dialing it down to one thing or one or two things that are in that same category, like capital raiser, connector, which are basically in the same category. And you're just going to focus on those skills, honing those skills and mastering it, and then pulling the people in around you to handle the other tasks. And that's their superpower. Xana's obviously, her superpower is contracts and being a TC and analyzing numbers. So it's a good compliment. And she doesn't want to get out and talk and put herself on social media and plan lunch appointments to do all this stuff and build the relationships. So, and that was the thing. And it still took, months of hearing it for it to really set in, and I think the biggest thing we took from the mastermind is how we were looking at our goals and how we were looking at building the business. We were doing it on such a small scale of still thinking about her and I handling everything. And we really had a hard time branching out. So I'd say the biggest takeaway from our weekend meeting was get an ops manager, because this person is going to free up so much of that for you guys to focus on your superpowers. And then you've got somebody else to lean on, and it's somebody else, taking bits and pieces to allow you to move faster and build bigger, quicker.
Yeah. So you mentioned working on your superpowers, and you mentioned that your superpower, talking to people, capital raising, connector. Why don't you explain to everybody kind of what a connector does or a capital raiser does, especially when it's directed specifically towards real estate?
Right. So the connector is pretty simple. Someone that's getting to know people, finding out their strengths. Like, I know you do an underwriting Zoom. We've got people that are struggling with underwriting. So, hey, Zach's got this Zoom on Friday. You might want to jump on that. Here's the link. Connecting them. It may also, benefit you to meet them and see what they're doing. Oh, great, Patrick's already hired an ops manager. He's got information on there on how to, scale that position. So it's all just connecting people that need each other. At the mastermind, a lot of people were in need of underwriters. So there was a lady there who's like, spent a lot of time underwriting, connecting them. Oh, so-and-so, I would want to learn to be on a podcast or learn to do a podcast. That was a goal for me. So I definitely connected right away with you and Nathaniel there when you guys were talking about doing it. We were, connecting on our chat before we met, already thinking about the people there that needed, that were doing things that you needed in your business, and connecting and helping each other. And just, the network we built over the weekend was so helpful for everybody, just feeding into each other and giving little bits and pieces that we're missing from our business. As far as the capital raising, so in real estate investing, a lot of the houses are sold as is, so we can't get traditional loans. Or if you did get traditional loans, you can only get so many houses under your name. So it leads to creative ways to find funding for deals. So multiple avenues of that are, one is a private money lender, which is just an individual or individual entity who's going to loan you capital so that you can buy a property. And we would typically do this for 6 months to a year, with a higher percent of interest that you're going to get for money just sitting in a money market account usually. So it's helpful to the investors that want to buy properties and hold them long term. And then it also can benefit people that aren't necessarily in real estate or have a W-2 job or just have money that they sitting in the bank, not making as much money as they want. They can use it for passive income. So I'm working with individuals right now that are not in the real estate market to educate them on doing that and how they can make their money work for them passively. So that's something new that I'm learning and getting into, is starting to build those relationships on social media.
Mm-hmm. And they're nice because they go hand in hand with each other. Connectors, just talking to as many people as you can, learning what they need, and then learning what they have, and then just connecting to. In some cases, you have an investor, right? Maybe me, I have a deal and I need funding for it, right? You're connecting me to the private money lender who you've created a relationship with, and you get paid throughout that process, right? So you can make money off of doing it, right? It's nice to build a relationship, like you said, and say, oh, you need this, like, let's go, here's a great link for somebody who's hosting information, on that. And so they go hand in hand because you're talking to all those people that you eventually come across people who have money and who are looking to invest it, especially if somebody doesn't want really anything to do with being active in the project, whether it is a flip or buy and hold, and it's money just sitting there getting 1% or whatever it is in an account. So they go hand in hand, which is awesome. There's different ways to make money. Also, kind of part of the problem with real estate is there's so many different ways to make money, but the two of them can work really well together, especially for someone like you who likes talking to people and wants to learn about them and build relationships with them. And then with your sales background and coaching background, like, your ultimate goal is to help them. So that's another bonus, is you can provide value to them in that way.
Yeah, just more opportunity for more people.
Exactly. So what are, we talked about a lot of different things, social media and talking to people. So what are, like, 3 habits that you've had to build to help build, the real estate business, the construction business, but, that's helped you kind of really made progress over the last few months?
Writing out my calendar. So usually Friday, the end of Friday, I'm making sure my calendar is getting filled up for next week. Time blocking for the time I need to do for the social media or make appointments with people and doing the connecting. So, as the week goes on, I'm already setting things up for next week and just trying to get that calendar full with talking to so many people per day. I try to do 3 or 4 people per day right now, in between the other stuff we're doing with our properties that we're managing. Getting more comfortable with social media. I was never a huge fan of social media, but I use it. And so I've got a couple entrepreneurial girlfriends that I follow. So I've kind of taken their lead of some things to get ideas and post. And so for me too, like you with the gym, I'm trying to help people have a healthier lifestyle. So kind of doing a 50-50 balance of those two things.
Awesome. And what, if you had to give advice to somebody who is getting started in business or real estate in general, what would be something that you would recommend to them or to, yourself when you were first getting started?
Gosh, definitely getting a mentor, getting into any kind of group, networking group, whether you're meeting in person, you're meeting online, or you're sitting down face to face. It just has been so helpful to have that guidance. There's a lot that you can learn, on the internet these days, but it's not always accurate. So finding people that have actually done it, that are living it and breathing it, I found it's been the best way. It's been a game changer.
Yeah, that was something I struggled with too, is trying to do it on my own whether that is reaching out to somebody who's ahead of me or just making friends that are at the same level as me, and just I was always afraid to ask for advice, even though when somebody asked me, I would be more than happy to help them. But getting over that hump of trying to do it all by myself, and either finding a mentor or just like you talked about the mastermind and how helpful that was, just to meet everybody else doing the same thing as you. It's just like, just start talking to people and learning about what they're doing, and you'll pick up some stuff from them. And then when you need help, inevitably you can ask them, just like they're going to ask you, because you will come across, just like you and your partner, people who are opposites and who can help you in the areas that you're weak in. So kind of transitioning over, we talk a lot about business and kind of the habits and what you've been working on there. So the health and fitness side, being a coach, what got you into coaching, health and fitness group classes?
Gosh, I used to love step class. I know it's so 80s, but it was such a huge thing when I coached at LA Fitness, and I just thought it was like the next best thing from dancing. So you're kind of almost dancing. You've got to move to the beat on the step. It's going to be real bad if you miss the step. So I just enjoyed that because it didn't feel like working out to me. And it was probably one of the hardest things to learn, because you have an apparatus and you got to follow the beat. You got to rattle things off at the same time. So I actually had, same thing, a mentor that at LA Fitness. I took her class all the time. So she started teaching me and started letting me teach maybe 10 or 15 minutes of her step class. So finally got into teaching there. I also had a yoga instructor that I enjoyed, started, going to her classes all the time. Oh, hey, she's out, needs a sub. I think the first time I subbed her class, it used to be packed. So I'd go in there and stuff, and you can see people come to the door and see me and turn around and leave, when you have someone that's not your teacher. So eventually, I built up a class that was the same way, where if I wasn't there one day, but it just was so rewarding for me to, people, love doing the yoga because it helped prevent injuries, and they liked my step class because we had fun music. So just making things more fun and helping people meet their fitness goals was so fulfilling to me. So I've just continued with, some boot camp groups, and then transitioned over into CrossFit. I wouldn't say I was necessarily ever looking to do CrossFit. It just happened to be the gym I was in and what was going on at the time. So I was coaching with a group during COVID in a CrossFit gym. The CrossFit gym came back into the gym when everything kind of opened up. In Georgia, we didn't close for quite as long, and my boot camp group didn't. And I was like, well, I'm ready to be back in the gym, and I'm ready to coach. And they needed a coach at the time. So it just kind of worked out that I was in the location, and, it was a new challenge for me to do something new.
Yeah. What gave you that confidence to, you'd already been teaching classes and you never really intentionally got into CrossFit. So what gave you the confidence of jumping from those group classes into CrossFit, which is, a little more technical. There's a lot more to teach than step class. I've never personally taken a step class. I know, my mom loves step classes, and I remember always she coached them too, but they're completely different. So that's a big transition from step class and yoga to CrossFit. So how did you make that transition, and how did you have the confidence to do that?
It was definitely a little fake it before you make it, especially with, what is this power clean thing that we're doing? Why are we grabbing the bar and just lifting up to our shoulders? Okay, now I get it. And something that doesn't look difficult, there's an 8 or 9 step process to doing that particular move. So definitely was a little bit of a transition. And I, learned from other coaches, learned from the owner. And I really only got CrossFit certified 6 months ago, and I've been teaching it for 4 years. So having the fundamentals from group fitness really carried, a lot into it, the stance and the posture and where your weight should be and where your knees and hips should be. So it roughly translated.
So what does your, you did step class, did the yoga, you're coaching CrossFit. What does a week look like for you when it comes to, exercise and fitness? How do you break it up? Times a day, days of the week? Are you only doing CrossFit? What does it look like?
So I teach at Lifetime Fitness, was probably the opposite of CrossFit, because it's a big, beautiful box gym with foamy soap and free hand towels and air conditioning, and there's always somebody cleaning. And then, as you know, the CrossFit gym, we have no air conditioning. There's probably going to be a cockroach running around at some point just because there's no air conditioning. It's dirty. We're usually outside. So I have a good balance of that. I teach 2 mornings a week at Lifetime, and then I teach the other mornings at CrossFit. I teaching every morning except for one, and I get up about 4 o'clock every morning to teach a 6:30 class. So some days I have a little bit more time with that, so I will focus on work or checking my emails and doing those things. But one of my habits has been keeping that consistent time, and I get up at 5 usually on the weekends too, and that's where I can get some work done, before everyone starts their day. So it's a good balance of the 2 workouts. They're very different. In our box gym at Lifetime, the heaviest weights we have are 20s. So we're doing a full body workout with the weights that way. And then at CrossFit, we use a lot of the barbell or the rig, and we're doing more load bearing movement, more gymnastic movement. So it's a really good complement one to the next.
Yeah, I think that's the best part about fitness in general and exercises. There's so many different ways to get the exercise in. And just like real estate, there's so many ways that it can also kind of be a problem too. You mentioned earlier that, the internet has so much information, but it also has a lot of misinformation. What's the right thing? And sometimes it's just easier to just pick one and stick with it for a little while to see if you really like it. Because if you don't, A, you've already built that habit, and B, there's something else that you can try. And it's important to explore all those different options because it does give you some diversity in what you're working on.
Yeah, it's definitely a dent to the other. And then I've got a husky mix who's down there on the floor, she's 8. So she's not as active as she used to be, more so in the winter. So I'm definitely getting a couple miles in walking with her. I get a little break in the summer because she's hot and more worn out. So we'll walk earlier in the morning, but not getting as many long walks in. So I just like being outside in general.
Yeah, I have a husky pit mix too. So she's kind of the same way. She's like wintertime, she's good. Let me outside, all that stuff. And then summertime, unless there's a lake or a body of water nearby, she's like, I just want to lay inside in the air conditioning all day.
She's the same. And she was at the lake yesterday jumping off our tower with us.
Awesome. That's the best. So you also talk about, time blocking your time and like getting up early and being consistent with that, which is great, right? That parallels to the business side of things. So what are some of the challenges? We talked about some of the challenges that you work through in business. What are some of the challenges that you work through in fitness, whether that's mindset or even injury, overcoming challenges or failures? What kind of challenges have you overcome?
My biggest challenge for sure is injuries. And, I just turned 50 this year. So you get injured easier and the recovery takes a lot longer than it used to when we were in our 20s and 30s. I had a major surgery about 7 years ago I had a back muscle that I had to have a lat muscle pulled around. So I really underestimated how that would just trickle down to even my ankle. It really threw off my whole body. So even though I was, technically healed and released to go back to working out, I started doing things like I would. And then I had like a hip issue. And I, started doing things and it transferred to my other knee. And then kept going from there. And next it was like an ankle. And it was all just kind of stemming from that little muscle being moved and just changing the dynamic of everything. So I definitely have invested in getting like passive stretching. And we have a guy in our gym who actually used to be a coach, and he does cupping and muscle release. He loosely calls it massage. I would not call it a massage at all. So he really works those areas where you've got muscle contractions, and he's worked a lot of that area where I've had tightened up and it was not fun at all. But it is so helpful to have that type of work done on top of chiropractic and maintenance. Just like with your vehicle, if you don't clean it and keep it up and have fresh oil and gas, it doesn't run so well, and our body's a lot the same, especially as we get older.
100%. And that's what's like when you're active, you're going to be more prone to getting injured just because you're doing something, right? And I'd rather get hurt being active and being healthy than to, have to go to the doctor for just being inactive, right? For inactive reasons and having to do that. And it's because when people are like, friends who don't work out, they're like, I feel like you're always hurt. Or I feel like something's always nagging you. And like you said, it's like, yeah, like I don't know something's wrong. You don't know something's wrong with the car until you take it out on the road, right? So if you're just sitting there not doing anything, you're not going to realize the issues that you might be having. So I'd rather get hurt to some extent being active than to sit there and just let the health go away and then have to go to the doctor for a completely different reason.
You don't use it, you lose it.
Yeah, exactly. And then the injuries are tough too. I've dealt with some as well. And like you said, it's the trickle down effect of like one thing goes to the next. And one thing I always learned was whenever it feels better, because like you said, you want to jump right back into doing whatever you were doing before, is to give it another week and give it time and really take the time to do the stretches and the rehab or prehab exercises, because that will stack up down the road and it will affect you mentally, because you're not going to be able to work out, which makes you depressed, or at least made me depressed, like, not in a legit way, but like just, I want to be with my friends at the gym. So that's a hard part. I don't know if you dealt with that same kind of mindset, mental issue with like, yeah, I can go to the gym and stretch, but I want to be working out with my friends over there.
Oh yeah. And I could go at first and I could do lower body, or I could do this. And it was like, it's just so not fun. I want to be doing what everybody else is doing, and you want to compete and push yourself. So it was definitely a challenging time for me to have a lot of restrictions. Mm-hmm. And the whole goal is, I've got some people now who, they struggle mentally. You can see it in the gym, and they, we put numbers up there when you have CrossFit of the suggested weight, whether it be dumbbells or barbells. And some people just beat themselves up so much if they can't do that weight for a given workout, or they try to do the weight and I'm watching them kill themselves and get injuries. And I'm like, I'll say, you're not winning any money. Mm-hmm. The goal is to do it with best form, push yourself, but you don't need to like kill yourself. Mm-hmm. Like do it so that we can keep doing this and it makes your life better.
That's the hardest transition to make, especially in CrossFit. And I think that's why sometimes CrossFit can get a bad name and a bad rep, is it's the people who were competitive in high school, college, and that was their sport. Now CrossFit's their sport. That's what happened to me. And you just forget that you're not 18 or 20 years old anymore. And it's okay that you can't do these weights. It's for a longevity thing. It's for kids, grandkids, right. Like just being able to be active. And it's hard to kind of shut that off sometimes. But that's why it's important to find, we talked about a mentor in business, a coach who can help you and be like, it's okay, or you need to scale this back, right. Because you don't want to not be here next week because you did something stupid today, and just need somebody to remind you of that issue. And having that mentor or the coach is big. And it sounds like that's kind of why you like to be a coach, is because you want to be able to like, all right, it's okay, let's work through this together. Like it's fine.
Yeah.
So, working through that and helping people through that, what somebody who's looking to get started working out or health and fitness, what is the first step or the couple of tips that you would want to give someone, either just getting started in general, or maybe it's been a while since they've been into the gym and they don't have any, habits when it comes to health and fitness?
I would say definitely getting help, either, doing a few sessions with a personal trainer, or joining a gym where it's small group and you have a coach so that someone can teach you the movements properly and kind of help, have a friend who doesn't know. She's like, I don't know the difference between good pain and bad pain, just kind of helping them sort out what is good for them, what is a good place to start, and then have the focus on, your eating habits as well. And then your stretching and your maintenance and kind of like the whole big picture.
100%. And same thing, right? Real estate, business, health and fitness, having somebody guide you, having another perspective makes all the difference. It'll increase the speed in which you're able to improve, get better, and feel good in general. So definitely super important and something I agree with. So kind of rounding things out, what are some of your goals moving forward in, both health and fitness and then in your real estate business? So, we can keep track and people can kind of reach out to kind of see how you can achieve them or how they can help you achieve them?
For me, for working out, probably what I struggle with the most is giving myself time off. And it's kind of like, that fear of missing out. Like my friends are doing it and, oh, I like this workout, I want to do it, and not really listening to my body. Vegas was a good example where we were really busy, missed a couple of days. And I was like, mentally, we got to work out. It was good for me to physically have a few more days off of the gym that I'm not great at giving myself. And then I do preach that to people that come in the gym. So following what I preach as well.
Mm-hmm.
For work, it's just continuing to put myself out there, like coming on your podcast. This is definitely a goal of mine that I would like to do in the near future so that I can connect with more people as well. So keeping myself out there on social media, doing the live, doing the videos, and continuing to network that way. It's really been positive so far.
Awesome. I love that. And putting yourself out there is important. And you want to start a podcast, right? Yes. Like you're kind of like, yeah, perfect. Do you have any ideas on what that looks like so we can kind of keep an eye out for it? Or you kind of just
a little bit. I definitely want to talk about, fitness as well and just health. There are a few girls in my gym that are doing stuff for women over 40. So since I'm a woman over 50 now, so kind of bringing that in, it looks a lot different than it did when I was 20 and 30. So just kind of talking to women too and knowing that it's okay. It's okay that you're not doing RX all the time. It's just showing up. You're still doing it. You're doing it to be healthy. Now let's focus on nutrition. Let's focus on maybe some supplements, things that can help you sleep, help you with the fun side effects that come when you're 50, those kind of things as well.
Awesome. I love that. So last question, question I like to ask everybody, 3 books that you have been the most impactful, or even just a favorite book. Doesn't necessarily have to be like personal development wise, but 3 books that have made an impact on you.
I have, let's see, one was the 4 Agreements that I had introduced to me years ago, which just kind of focuses on not really worrying about what other people think, doing what's best for you. It's always good to have a reminder of that. Personally, I read a book called It's Not You by Dr. Ramani. For some experiences and relationships I've been in the past, it was very helpful. And I'm currently reading the book Worthy by Jamie Kern Lima. She has spoken on Tony Robbins, and I'm going to a Reen live event next month, and she's going to be there live. So I figured it would be a good time to read her book, hear all of that. And she's going to be there with Ed Millett, who's also awesome. So partly why I'm going there. And I get to meet my business partner in person, so that'll be good too.
That's always fun, right? You interact on Zooms in this little box, and you don't really know, what to expect when you meet them. I know Jesse, we were at that event last week. Him and Chris's mastermind, how much taller they are. It's like you see them, and you're like, oh, yes. They're like over 6 feet tall, and you're like, okay, this makes more sense to meet somebody in person who you've built a close relationship with, but have only talked through, on a little box. It's definitely a lot better and a lot more fun and better to make the deeper connection in person.
Well, I'm 5'6", and she recently told me she's 5'2". So I was like, oh, would have no idea. So she's tiny.
Yeah. Thanks for the heads up. So I don't have to
So when I wear my dress shoes and I'm skying over you, I'll be prepared.
100%. So where can people find more out about you? I know you're getting out on social media more. What's the best place to reach out to you? Facebook, Instagram?
Definitely right now, Facebook is the best place to connect. Facebook and Messenger, I'm there the most. I'm working on getting a LinkedIn profile, but I'm not up to speed yet. But that's this week's goal.
Perfect. And then when you get the podcast up and running, let me know. I would love to be a guest, but also I can link it in these show notes so that way people can find out more about it there.
Great. And I'll be asking you for help when it comes to that too. I know I was looking up StreamYard.
Yes, which is what we're recording on now.
Yeah.
That allows you to go live as well to YouTube, Instagram, Facebook all at once, which is nice. Nice little feature. That's what I used to do for this podcast. And we'll do down the road for some interviews or some talks or whatever. But the problem is there's so many options. So it's good to get different perspectives from different people, like we talked about. So definitely reach out if you need anything. I'm more than happy to help.
I definitely will. And I want to hear more about your ops manager and what stuff you're doing in business too, Zach.
Definitely, for sure. Thank you so much for coming on.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.